the weekly show with David J. Maloney. This week, David chats with actress and author Alison Arngrim. And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
On tonight's show, we've got part 2 of my interview with Alison Arngrim. If her name only sounds familiar, her face is certainly one you will recognize. As a child actor, she played the iconic antagonist role of Nellie Oleson on Little House on the Prairie. From there, she's worked in comedy, theater, television, movies, and even wrote a bestseller, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, How I Survived Nellie Oleson and Learned to Love Being Hated. Back with us again tonight to finish our chat about her acting career and best-selling novel is Alison Arngrim. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
We had the same group of kids. So when there was a break and hang out, we had people our own age to talk to and hang out with, like a real school, like a real town. So we didn't have that weird thing of, I'm in a bubble with a bunch of 40-year-old actors. We had other children to talk to, which I think is one of the many reasons why people from Little House are a little healthier upstairs than some of the other child actors. We were also held to a very high standard. We had to work very hard. We were absolutely expected to turn in a performance at the same level as the grown-ups working there and go to school at the same time. And so there was fooling around, but then there was no fooling around. It was like, okay, now it's time to let's go here. And you had to know your business. You had to really work. So, and then we were treated with respect for it. We were like, no, these young people are actors, and we were treated with respect. And I think that, combined with the work ethic and the fact that we had other children to talk to, really made it a saner experience than a lot of child actors get.
Now, was everything shot on some sort of back lot, or was there a specific location that you guys did you guys go to a location that was consistent, or how was that aspect of it handled?
Kind of both, because we had the indoor and the outdoor scenes. The indoor stuff, the studio. So for the first few years, we were at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, and we had like 2 whole sound stages with all this, the Little House and the Mercantile and all our sets. And then, 4th year, I want to say 3rd, we moved to MGM, way out in Culver City, it's now Sony, and that's where they filmed The Wizard of Oz and all those old ones. We're like, wow, we're at MGM, and they actually put us on stage 15. Where they had filmed The Wizard of Oz. So we're very proud of that. And the great thing was it was a huge, this thing was so big. We had everything that had taken 2 whole sound stages were on 1 sound stage, plus the whole makeup and hair department, plus Michael's gym, and like all our dressing rooms. They shoved things that had taken up 2 sound stages and half a parking lot were all in one building. So that was fun. We'd have to go out in the rain. And we found out that, yes, it was where they shot The Wizard of Oz. And one day they were ripping something up, repairing something, and they lifted up like layers of linoleum. Because, in Hollywood, they just build over things. They pulled up the linoleum. There's the yellow brick road in the floor. There it is. And so Melissa and I are like, click your heels. We're going to Oz. So we filmed it, but for the outdoor scenes, because obviously we're outdoors, what they did is they rented a chunk of land out in Simi Valley, California, a place called Big Sky Ranch. And if you go online, Big Sky Ranch, I swear everything films there, very famous. Everybody, so many movies and TV shows shoot there. In fact, sometimes I'll watch old Westerns and it's like Audie Murphy, and it's like they're in Simi Valley. It's like, that's the Little House set. So they took it and they built a whole town. Now, they were all empty shells. There was like nothing in them, but they built a schoolhouse and a little house and everything. They're just kind of empty. The Mercantile and Nellie's Hotel, because we had such big windows, they would put a little bit like set dressing, indoor stuff. But pretty much they built these complete exteriors, and then we had the complete interiors. And then once a year, we'd all get on a plane, and we'd either go to Sonora, which is in Northern California, gorgeous area. Because remember, Laura ran away from home and suddenly climbed a mountain and met Ernest Borgnine. And there are no mountains in Minnesota. I don't know how she did that. But so we went to Sonora, where there's a mountain. There's the camp out where we're in the river, all that kind of stuff. We went to Sonora. And then we would go to Arizona for the desert, anything involving Indian tribes and hot air balloons and things. Yeah. We'd go out to we went out to this marvelous place in Tucson in Arizona. So we had 2 field trips that we would sort of like make once a year out to those locations.
So here you're the chief antagonist in the show for 7 years. Was there ever a point in those seasons where you didn't want to be Nellie anymore, or in other words, did it ever become tiresome, or was you just happy you were still working, or was it so explosive that it made it consistently exciting to the end?
Well, I mean, there was obviously, even as a kid, you're an actor, and Hollywood's like, oh, good, I have a job. And one of the things also was really cool because I was a teenager, and in retrospect, it's like, woo, dodged a bullet. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. A lot of child actors, as my father explained, don't work as teenagers because once you become a teenager, heaven forbid your voice changes early or you grow, because most child actors are really short. A lot of the guys are kind of short. If you, like many teenagers at 14 or 15, grow to be tall, you become a young man and you're tall, you're out of work, pal, because they can hire an 18-year-old to play 17, 16, even 15. They get a short 18-year-old who looks kind of baby-faced. He can play 14. They don't have to end at 8 hours. They don't have to hire the teacher. They don't lose him for the 3 hours school a day. They have a regular adult actor. They can do whatever the heck they want. His mom doesn't need to drive him there. And he can work overtime. And there's no teacher. And he can play 14, 15, 16, 17. So not going to go higher. Unless, as a 16-year-old, you look young, so you can play parts that might be too hard for a 14-year-old or something, or you're a huge star, you are going to have a heck of a time working at 15, 16, 17. Unless you're really amazing, they're going to go get an 18-year-old. So that's the tough period, is to try to find something that you're locked in, you're covered for that period. So I got hired at 12, the beginning of the quote awkward age, and stayed there till I was 19 and over age. And from an actor or agent or manager, a showbiz perspective, that is like winning the lottery. That is like, whew, because everybody else suddenly became horrendously unemployed at like 16. And there I was full time. So that was really, really cool. The other was, I liked the part. There usually was something new and interesting. Sometimes it got a little dull. If they said, well, there's not much. She has to do 7 out of 13 episodes. We don't have anything. So we'll just have her kind of be in this episode and like pop in briefly. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Why? And I get bored. And when I got older, when I got nice when I got married, which was awesome. The first year was very clever because it was a sudden change and, oh, she's nice. But then they didn't kind of know what to do. So by like the very last year, I'm like coming in going, hey, more coffee? You want some lamb stew? Because now I'm nice. I'm not going to throw a plate at anybody. What if so then it's like, now what do we do with her? Now she's just another lovely housewife person on the show. So it's like, And I thought, okay, no, this is a problem because now I'll get bored. I liked when I threw plates at people. So when they said, okay, well, 7 years is up. Do you want to sign on for another several years, or do you want to go do something else with your life? I kind of went, I think I maybe want to. I was like, can you pay me more money? No. Can I have more shows? No. Could you make me mean again? I was like, well, then. So I wound up, that's when I took off and started doing like a lot of theater and stand-up because it wasn't as exciting. When I was yelling and screaming and throwing stuff, that was a job. I'd hang out for that.
And it's obvious to anyone who's followed you personally and from your time with us on the show so far, how sweet and genuine and heartfelt a person you are. How are you able to channel that kind of evilness of Nellie for so long? Where did you draw that from?
I was doing it 2 weeks ago too in North Carolina. People, God, when I did the play, I said, if you hated me then, come see me at the Judson and hate me again on stage. I was just vile, Mrs. Boyd. If you're familiar with Agatha Christie, she often has these little old lady characters, these awful people. I had done And Then There Were None, and played the old English lady who's awful and just remorseless and dreadful. And everyone's like, ugh. And so they're like, do you want to come and play Mrs. Boyd? And I go, isn't that the mean old English lady who's totally remorseless and terrible and dies in Act 1? And they went, yeah. I said, isn't that what I did last time? They're like, yeah, technically, but so I said, I'll do it. So I play these terrible characters. It's kind of fun. As an actor, it's like talking about the shadow side or the dark side, playing those things. But when I was younger, it really was a place to vent all your tension and angst and hostility. When you're a teenager, you don't want to be told what to do. Well, if you're an actor and you're on a TV show, you're getting told what to do kind of all the time. So here's a character who's like, no, I don't want to be told what to do. And you're just spitting and snarling and flinging things at people and yelling no and stomping around. Like, okay. And when you're a kid, so many of the actor parts were they were like overly sweet. Like a lot of the child actor characters, kind of like, yes, mother. Like, okay, nobody's that nice. And so here I was like, no, mother. That's really freeing. It's really fun. I have really great blood pressure. My heart rate, blood pressure, like, I'm just like zen. I let it all out.
In a way, I guess it's kind of a release. I mean, and I can see how that could be true. I mean, it's kind of a safe way to act on certain negative impulses, get them out of your system, and at the same point, a great way to learn why we shouldn't act on those negative impulses, because you get to see the ramifications in a safe manner. No,
there's an old saying: nothing is so instructive as a bad example. And there are people who literally have sat and watched Little House, shown the episode of their children, said, don't do that. Absolutely. I actually met a guy, very nice man, from Colombia, and he said his brother was a priest at a church in Colombia. He said his whole family was hooked on Little House since they were kids. And his brother at the Sunday school lessons would talk about, do you want to be like Laura? Do you want to be like Nellie? And talking about like the right way to do things. And it was also great because for kids who were bullied, Laura showed she's, like, here is this girl who's given her a hard time, and how does she, so excellent example. But yes, for child actors, longevity, that's the thing. There's certain child actors historically, Elizabeth Taylor and people who started out as children, but it's very difficult. So, I mean, Jodie Foster started as a very young child. That's the thing, is most child actors, like I said, it stops at 12 or it stops at 18. And if you manage to get past that, it usually just doesn't always click. And some of the factors are like, some of the things that get you hired as a child actor aren't things that get you hired as an adult. As I said, a lot of child actors, young child actors who are boys, when they grow up, sometimes they're not very tall. Now, luckily in Hollywood, most actors are pretty short. I mean, if you look at the famous actors, the Pacinos, they're all very short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's not a lot of short. David Hasselhoff is tall. Okay, I think that generally they tend to be, unless you're playing superheroes, most actors are really short. So that's at least good. But a lot of the things, and it depends like what show you were on. Sometimes child actors, and you've seen it, they're encouraged to kind of do sort of just catchy one-liners and stuff, and not really do like an adult level deep performance. And some of the kids on dramas, of course, are. But then what happens? And sometimes, even if you can do it, even if you do transition to adult and your work as an adult is Jodie Foster level dead on, people don't believe it. Even Jodie Foster, she left town. Remember, she turned 18. She took off. She went to Yale and came back. And that's the thing, because even Jodie Foster, who's a genius, there were people in Hollywood who are like, well, I don't know. They weren't going to hire her as an adult. They were like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, hello, she has how many Oscars now? What? Come on. The woman is brilliant. But there absolutely was a period when she first grew up where there were people who were not really prepared to be willing to let her be a grown-up actress. And it's a real obstacle. So you have that. And then you have the poor people who, honest to goodness, they didn't want to do it. They had the crazy kind of stage parents who go, get in the car, we're going to be in the movies. And then what do you do? Then what do you do if you grow up from that? Of course, there's going to be problems. So it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure to work as a kid. It's a lot of responsibility, and it's hard. And not everybody can handle it. It's rough business, and it can be hard, and not everyone can do it. Not everybody can.
So season 7 ends, and like you said, you decide to move in a different direction. You said you tried stand-up. That has got to be, one of the more challenging things, obviously. Tell us a little bit how that went for you.
I was about 15, and I think my father was managing all these people. Oh, Peter Jurasik, the actor, his manager got him started. So there was a comedy group called the Village Idiots. God, they were funny. And Peter Jurasik and all these famous people were in it. Jan Fisher, who wrote the movie The Lost Boys, Mark Ganzel, who was one of the producers on the show, Coach. I mean, they all went on to huge fame. So they were at this comedy group, and I would go to see them. So I was at the comedy clubs at like 15, and there was this comic who was kind of doing an audience interaction thing. I was all right, I was giving him a hard time. I was 15. And he did the old, yeah, I think this is so easy, kid. You ought to try it. There's a thought. So next thing I know, I met with the Village Idiots, who all wrote comedy as well as performed it. And so we put together a stand-up act. So I was on stage by 15 and a half. I was at the Comedy Store and the Improv and clubs around the country. And then I was full tilt at 16, 17, 18 touring. I really I liked it because I could express my real personality, and it's evolved now over the years that I have this one woman show called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch.
Yeah.
And that's really funny because I tell kind of in that the story of like, okay, I have people hating me who are mad at me for stuff I did when I was 12, pretending to be somebody else. What world am I living in here? And it's hilarious and talking about Chelsea, but you can address stuff. You can come right out and say, here's the elephant in the room. Yes, this is really weird. What was going on? And you can talk directly to people. And I always have a question and answer segment in my show. They get little cards, ask Alison anything. And so they ask me questions. And some of the questions are so funny, I don't even need to write material. And then we answer them. Well, then half of those, it's like, okay, that's going in the act permanently because that was too funny. So you get to interact with people. It's really, I really enjoy it. But yeah, for many people, it's like, wait, there's not like a regular script. There's no other actors. I can't stop in the middle, have a do-over. I mean, I like live theater. I like live stand-up. It's not as scary to me.
Well, and as a general rule, comedy, I guess they say either it has to be at somebody else to make it funny. It has to either be at somebody else's expense or have some truth in it so that people can associate with it. Do you have do you have a closing joke, a go-to, the one that you know always kills?
Yeah. Oh, I do a sight gag thing at the end of my show, and I even do it on my online show. After going on about all my whole life, I go, fine. Is this? Do you still think that I'm this person? I'm a nice person. I said, but there's some things in my life I will never live down. And then I come back out in the Nelly wig, the nightgown, in the wheelchair.
Oh, geez.
And I go, yes, fine. Is this what you wanted? Yes, I am. And it's freaking hilarious. I talk about, yes, this is who I am. And because I am this, you have freed me. It is, and it's very good. It's very cool. But yes, we come out there and go, yes, fine, there's your Nelly for you. Yeah, it's the truth thing. It's what often happens. Some of the best comedy is where you're saying what the audience was thinking, but hadn't said yet. That they were thinking it. And then you say, yes, I know what you're thinking. It's this, isn't it? And they go, oh, dear, that is totally what I was thinking. And she just said it. That's that. If you can do that, that's like, oh God, that's like the best comedy.
So within a couple of years of the show ending, Steve Tracy dies of complication of AIDS. How did you first find that he had passed? And had you stayed in touch with him at all in the time frame from the end of the show until he passed?
Oh, yeah. We became really good friends during the show. We really hit it off, and we were hanging out after the show and going places and doing stuff together. He's a wonderful person. And we're also very involved with the Screen Actors Guild and doing all those kind of things and events for SAG. And when he got sick, he called me. And initially, he wasn't sure yet if he was going to come out and tell people he had AIDS, because it was 1984, 1985. It was crazy. So, he said, well, I have cancer. And then like a couple of weeks later said, okay, here's what's going on. I have AIDS. And well, I have cancer, but I have the AIDS related cancer. And he explained that he had AIDS. And then he said, I'm going to go public. And he did. He got interviewed on a TV show. This is at the time when like Rock Hudson wasn't even Rock Hudson on his deathbed said, yes, I have AIDS. People did not come out publicly and say they had AIDS. Liberace was still trying to tell people he was on the watermelon diet. It was terrible. People were so frightened. And here he was. He went public. Very brave man. And there was a whole article in the Inquirer. He did an interview with magazines and things. And it was quite something. It was a big deal. And he just said, well, if I can help other people. He was on an experimental drug treatment at the time, which actually did turn out to be one of the building blocks for the amazing cocktails and antivirals they have now that are keeping people alive. But it was very early on, and they were trying stuff out. And he had to have these injections. They're very painful. And I said, well, sounds very difficult. It sounds awful. Is it injection that you said they hurt. And he said, oh yeah, some of the people even dropped out of the drug trial. They couldn't even do it. But yeah, I'm good with that. And I was like, I said, well, is it going to work? Do you think it'll save you? And do you know, he said, oh, no, it's not going to save me. It's too late for me. I'm letting them do this, and I'm doing this drug trial because I'm hoping that this will lead to something and they'll be able to save someone else after I'm gone.
Yeah.
That's the kind of person he was. That's kind of, so yeah, when he got really, really, really sick at the end and he left, his mom came and picked him up. His mom and his sister took him back to Florida. He was from Tampa, Florida. He'd grown up in Ohio, but his family lived in Tampa. And so he was in LA. His mom and his sister took him back to Florida. And so they were with him when he died. And actually, his final wish was to be cremated and scattered near the Hollywood sign. And he is. He's under the D. You can wave when you go by.
And some people become authors. In 2010, you wrote your best-selling autobiography, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, How I Survived Nellie Olson and Learned to Love Being Hated. What was, I guess, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but what was the straw that broke the camel's back that made you finally, after all these years, sit down and tell your story?
I had been talking about it. I hate that we talk about. I'm going to do the and talk about it for like forever and don't do it. It's one of my pet peeves, and we all do it. I'm gonna do it. Yeah, you said that last year. It drives me bananas. So sometimes I won't even talk about a project because I don't want to jinx it, because I'm like, I'll just do it. I'm just gonna do it and not talk about it. But I talked about doing that book. I was blue in the face, and everyone was sick of hearing about it. But people were also talking to me about, I was really young when people would come up to me and say, are you writing a book? Are you writing a book about all this? Because you really should. You should take notes. This is some crazy stuff. And I did. And then finally, I'd been doing the stand. It was really when the one woman show happened. And I started doing that. And I went, wow, because I started telling all true stories on stage, real stories from my life.
You realized you had all this material.
It's a hit. And I went, okay, wait a minute. And I started, what's the long version, like the book version of these stories? And a literary agent came to my show in New York and said, is there a book to go with this show? And I said, there could be. And he said, do you have anything? Funny you should ask. He said, I need 4 chapters. Oh, look, what do I just happen to have? 4 chapters. And next thing I know, I'm meeting with publishers, and then the hard part, they said yes, and then I had to write the whole thing. So that's a lot of work, and as a lot of my friends who have found out have said, I'm going to write a book. Wow, that's a lot of work. Yes, it is. But it's very enjoyable if you do it right. And then there's the whole editing process and the whole book promotion process. It's a full-time gig, but it was totally worth it. And yes, I made the New York Times bestseller list. I'm very pleased. And people are still buying the darn thing. Hey, what can I do?
Where can our audience go on social media to follow you? I know that you've already cultivated a fantastic relationship with your fans, and you've even treated them to readings of Little House on Facebook, if I am correct. Yeah. But where can people go to follow you? We can put it up on the little screen and everything here.
I'm everywhere. There's a website actually called bonnetheads.com. Because the bonnet heads, the fans with their bonnets, bonnetheads.com, BONNETHEADS at bonnetheads.com. And that's the main website. You'll get referred to things there. Facebook, Alison Arngrim. Instagram. It's I'm at Arngrim. It's like Alison Arngrim, really easy to find with a name like Arngrim. In Twitter and Insta and TikTok. I've started on TikTok. We love the TikTok and of course the website. And then, on Facebook, I started during the pandemic. I said, well, let's read the Little House books. So I'm always doing crazy things on there. And the Alison Arngrim Show is on Facebook and UBN Go. YouTube, you can look up Who's Going to Do the Cooking with Alison Arngrim. That's on there. But if you go, you can sign up for the Nellie newsletter via my website, or just email me at loosegravelprod.com, or on Facebook, hit me up and we will get you hooked up. And once a month, you'll get an email telling you everywhere I am and everywhere other cast members from Little House are. It's quite handy.
Alison, thank you for joining us today. It's been a fantastic pleasure. It's just been tons of fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Alison Arngrim.
Thank you. Thank you very much.